The New York Giants spent years looking like an offense without a real identity. But something is changing behind the scenes, and the Brian Thomas Jr. trade idea exposes exactly where this franchise may be headed. This is not confirmed reporting. Let's be crystal clear. This is a prediction, a trade concept, a roster-building idea. But if the price is a future third-round pick, Joe Schoen cannot ignore the phone. Because nobody is paying attention to this part. The Giants do not just need another receiver. They need to decide what kind of offense they want Jaxson Dart to inherit as the current starting quarterback of Big Blue. Malik Nabers on one side, Brian Thomas Jr. on the other. That is not just fun. That is a philosophy shift. And when you connect the dots, this idea says more about the Giants' long-term vision than one trade rumor ever could. This is the call that tests the whole rebuild. Let's be honest about where things stand. The Giants' offense still has too many unanswered questions to pretend this roster is complete. The holes are clear. The receiver room has Malik Nabers, and then it has a fight for roles. That is not the same thing as a fully formed passing attack. One star can scare a defense. Two can bend the entire coverage structure. Right now, defenses can still tilt attention toward Nabers and dare somebody else to punish them. That is a problem. That makes life harder on Jaxson Dart. That makes every third down tighter. That makes every red zone snap feel like the field is shrinking. The Giants also have roster battles that are not settled yet. That matters because uncertainty at receiver does not just affect the depth chart. It affects the entire offensive installation. If the outside spots are not locked in, the timing is not locked in. If the timing is not locked in, Dart is being asked to grow inside an offense still searching for its shape. And this is where it gets real. The Giants cannot build this era halfway. They cannot say they believe in Dart, then surround him with a passing game that asks Nabers to carry every explosive play burden. John Harbaugh is the head coach now. That means physicality matters. Discipline matters. But in today's NFL, toughness without explosiveness is not enough. The G-men need answers. They need speed. They need matchup stress. They need a second weapon who forces defensive coordinators to lose sleep. And that brings us to the trade idea that just landed in the middle of this entire conversation. The headline is simple. A trade prediction has Brian Thomas Jr. going from the Jacksonville Jaguars to the New York Giants for a future third-round pick. Again, prediction. Not confirmed. Not a done deal. But the price is the part that gives this real weight. A future third-round pick means the Giants would not be surrendering the premium core of their draft capital. That matters because Big Blue could add a major young weapon without treating the move like an all-in desperation swing. For a Giants fan, here is the emotional translation. That is the kind of price where you do not hang up. You ask questions. You test the room. You find out if Jacksonville is even remotely serious. And if that price is even close to real, Joe Schoen has to at least pick up the phone. Because this is not about collecting shiny names. This is about building an offense that finally makes sense. Malik Nabers already gives the Giants a foundational weapon. But the moment you place Brian Thomas Jr. across from him, the entire field changes. Safeties cannot cheat the same way. Corners cannot squat on routes with the same comfort. The middle of the field opens. The run game gets lighter boxes. Dart gets clearer answers before the snap. That is what people miss when they talk about receivers like they are luxury pieces. A second explosive receiver is not decoration. It is infrastructure. It is protection for the quarterback. It is space for the offense. It is stress on the defense. And there is another layer here. Nabers and Thomas have the LSU connection. That matters because chemistry is not just a buzzword. It is shared language. It is timing. It is comfort. It is two young receivers who understand what explosive football is supposed to look like. No, you do not make a trade only because two players share a college background. That would be lazy roster building. But when the fit already makes football sense, the LSU reunion becomes the accelerator. The translation is simple. This would not be a random addition. It would be a receiver pairing with a built-in identity. This is the part nobody is talking about. The Giants are not just trying to survive with Dart. They should be trying to weaponize him. A young quarterback does not become dangerous because the franchise gives him speeches about development. He becomes dangerous when the defense has to defend every blade of grass. That is what Brian Thomas Jr. would represent. And if the Giants believe they are one weapon away from making this offense legitimately dangerous, this is the kind of move that changes everything. Now here's the piece that ties everything together. This trade idea only makes sense if you understand what the Giants are trying to become around Jaxson Dart. The Brian Thomas Jr. idea is not just about the receiver room. It is about the environment around Jaxson Dart. If Dart is the current starting quarterback, then every offensive decision has to be judged through one question. Does this make his job clearer, faster, and more explosive? Right now, pairing Thomas with Nabers would do all three. When an offense has one featured target, the quarterback can feel trapped. The read becomes obvious. The defense knows where the ball wants to go. The margin for error shrinks. When an offense has two dangerous young receivers, the quarterback gets options before the defense gets answers. That is why this trade concept is more than meets the eye. Fans may see a receiver rumor. I see a possible blueprint. Nabers can be the alpha weapon. Thomas can be the field-stretching counterpunch. Together, they could give the Giants one of the most dangerous young receiver duos in the NFL. That phrase matters. One of the most dangerous young receiver duos in the NFL means defenses would no longer treat the Giants like a team they can compress. They would have to back up. They would have to communicate. They would have to pick their poison. And that is how you help a young starting quarterback without babying him. You do not ask Dart to win every snap with perfect processing. You give him structure. You give him separation. You give him explosive answers. This is where John Harbaugh's presence becomes fascinating. Harbaugh is not here to build a soft offense that lives on empty promises. He is here to build a team with toughness, physicality, and real identity. But toughness in modern football includes making defenses scared. The New York Football Giants should not be trying to win every game 17-14 in spirit. They should be building an offense that can punch first, adjust second, and close late. And that is why Thomas makes sense as a target in a prediction. Not because the Giants need headlines. Because they need geometry. They need the field widened. They need coverage punished. They need Nabers protected from becoming the entire passing game. And when you combine that with the roster battles already happening, the trade idea becomes less like fantasy and more like a pressure test. That pressure test is the proof. The Giants' current roster battles and rookie class could shape whether a move like this is realistic. That sentence is doing a lot of work. Because if the Giants love what they already have in the receiver room, they can pass on the idea. If the rookies rise fast, if the role players separate, if the offense looks balanced, then maybe the future third-round pick is better saved. But if camp exposes the same old issue, this conversation gets loud fast. If Nabers is clearly the main threat and the rest of the room is still sorting itself out, then Schoen has to ask the uncomfortable question. Are we building around Dart aggressively enough? That is the real proof. This trade prediction forces the Giants to reveal their standard. A future third-round pick is not nothing. That pick can become a contributor. That pick can become depth. That pick can become a cheap starter if the board falls right. But here is the emotional translation. A future third-round pick is also the kind of asset you use when a young playmaker could transform your offense. That does not mean pay anything. It means investigate everything. And Jacksonville's side matters too. The source idea asks why the Jaguars might even consider it. That is the opening. If there is any scenario where Jacksonville listens, the Giants have to know. Not guess. No. Because Big Blue cannot afford to be passive while building around Dart and Nabers. This is not cosmetic. This is foundation building. The question is not whether Brian Thomas Jr. sounds exciting. Of course he does. The question is whether the Giants are ready to act like a team that believes its offensive window is starting now. Hot take. If Brian Thomas Jr. is available for a future third-round pick, the Giants should make that call immediately. And I am not backing down from that. My prediction is this. If Thomas joins Malik Nabers in New York, those two combine for no fewer than 175 catches in their first season together. That number matters because it would mean the Giants are no longer forcing the offense through one receiver. It would mean Dart has a real weekly answer sheet. If I am wrong, I will come back to this video and own it. But I do not think I am wrong. And I will say the divisive part. The Giants cannot treat Jaxson Dart like a franchise quarterback while giving him a half-built receiver room. That is how teams ruin young passers. That is how rebuilds stall. Malik Nabers is special. But making him carry the whole passing identity is not confidence. It is negligence. Brian Thomas Jr. would change that equation. Now, if someone wants to argue the pick is too valuable, fine. I hear it. But I disagree. A future third-round pick for a young explosive receiver is the kind of calculated gamble winning teams explore. Not reckless. Calculated. Giants fans have begged this franchise to think bigger. Well, this is bigger. Big Blue is back at the table, and this time, the question is whether they are willing to build an offense worthy of their quarterback. That is the identity statement for today. Not rumors. Not noise. Direction. Malik Nabers already gives the Giants a centerpiece. Jaxson Dart gives them the quarterback timeline. John Harbaugh gives them the foundation. Brian Thomas Jr. at the right price, could give them the explosion. So here is the choice, Giants fans. Would you trade a future third-round pick for Brian Thomas Jr. right now? Or are you protecting the pick and trusting the current receiver room? Pick a side. If you are riding with Big Blue through this rebuild, you know where that subscribe button is. We decode every move, every angle, and every signal this franchise sends. The G-Men cannot build scared anymore. Go Big Blue.